The evening air hung heavy over the city, carrying dust, sweat, and the quiet weight of broken promises. People moved along the roadside, focused on their own struggles. Yet one young man still managed to draw attention without trying. His name was Marcus Okoro. At 25, he carried himself with a quiet dignity that hardship could not erase. His deep eyes held years of sacrifice. His strong shoulders revealed endless labor. Many assumed life had been kind to him. They could not have been more wrong. Marcus dragged himself away from the construction site after another exhausting day. Dust covered his clothes like a second skin. Sweat clung to his shirt. His hands were rough from work. His back ached with every step. Hunger twisted inside his stomach, but he ignored it. He had learned long ago that survival often demanded silence. He stopped beside the road and took a slow breath, trying to gather enough strength for the walk home. Inside his pocket rested a folded piece of paper. He reached for it carefully. The note contained numbers written in his own handwriting. Calculations, savings, sacrifices. At the top stood one important figure, 300,000. That number represented the bride price he had been working toward for years. Marcus was not chasing wealth, he was chasing a future. He had loved Vanessa for 5 years. 5 years of loyalty, 5 years of patience, 5 years of believing that hard work would eventually open the right door. He wanted to marry her with honor. He wanted to stand proudly before her family. So he kept working, no matter how difficult life became. His fingers brushed against the small savings envelope hidden in his pocket. It was growing little by little. Every dollar represented another hour of sweat, another meal skipped, another burden carried. Marcus swallowed his hunger and started walking again. Then something unexpected happened. A low engine purred behind him, smooth, expensive, powerful. Headlights cut through the dusty street. A luxury vehicle rolled forward and stopped beside him. Nearby pedestrians turned their heads immediately. Marcus barely reacted. He was too tired to be impressed. He simply stared at the vehicle as though it had lost its way. The rear door opened slowly. A man stepped out. He appeared to be in his early 50s. His suit was flawless. His posture reflected influence and authority. Yet his face told a different story. His eyes glistened with emotion. His lips trembled as if holding back years of regret. Marcus recognized him instantly. It was Charles Okoro, his father, not just any father. Charles Okoro was one of the most powerful banking executives in the country. His name carried influence in boardrooms, government offices, and corporate circles. People feared his decisions. Businesses depended on his approval. Yet standing there before Marcus, none of that power seemed to matter. He looked broken. "Marcus," he called softly. The word struck deeper than Marcus expected. "My son." Marcus felt his chest tighten. The dust on his skin suddenly felt unbearable. The hunger vanished. In its place came something much sharper: anger, pain, 5 years of unanswered questions. Charles took a hesitant step forward. "I've been looking for you," he said. "Please, just talk to me." Silence settled between them, a silence carrying years of abandonment. Then Marcus laughed once. The sound held no joy. "You found me," he said coldly. "After all this time, you finally found me." Charles nodded desperately. "Yes." Marcus stepped forward. "Why now?" he demanded. "Why are you here now?" The older man flinched. Marcus could no longer contain the wound inside him. "You're my father," he said. "Your only son. Yet when I needed you most, you disappeared." His voice grew heavier. "When my mother died, I called you again and again. I called until my phone almost died in my hand. I called more times than I could count. I only wanted you to come home. I only wanted you to see her one last time." Charles lowered his head. "Marcus." "But you never came," Marcus continued. "You never answered. You never sent anyone. You acted like we meant nothing." Pain flashed across Charles's face. "I was wrong," he whispered. Marcus stared at him with burning eyes. "Some mistakes change everything," he said. The evening wind stirred the dust around them. The expensive car waited quietly by the roadside. Father and son stood only a few feet apart, yet the distance between them felt impossible to cross. Charles looked ready to say more. Marcus looked ready to walk away forever. Neither man realized that before the night ended, a decision would be made that could change both of their lives forever. Marcus walked away with his jaw tight and his heart pounding like a drumbeat under pressure. The streetlights flickered above him, casting long shadows across the dusty road. Behind him, Charles still stood near the luxury car, holding gifts that suddenly seemed useless. Marcus did not want cars, he did not want mansions, he did not want a bank card carrying a life he had never asked for. He wanted the father who had failed to appear when grief swallowed his home. The sound of hurried footsteps followed him. Marcus stopped before turning around sharply. Charles was coming after him, breathing hard, his expensive shoes striking the uneven roadside. The powerful banker looked nothing like the man people feared in business meetings. He looked like a father chasing the last chance to reach his son. "Marcus, please," Charles said, raising the black card in his trembling hand. "Just take this. Keep it for safety." Marcus stared at the card with bitterness rising in his throat. "Safety from what?" he asked. "Hunger, shame, or your guilt?" Charles's eyes filled again. "I know you don't want anything from me," he said. "I know you hate me, but take it anyway. Even if you never use it, just keep it. I cannot watch you suffer like this." Marcus wanted to slap the card from his hand. He wanted to reject every piece of wealth connected to Charles Okoro. But then he looked at his father's face. Really looked. This was not power standing before him. This was regret wearing an expensive suit. Charles's shoulders were low. His mouth kept trembling. His eyes looked helpless. Something inside Marcus softened slightly, though his anger stayed alive. He reached out and took the card, not with gratitude, but to end the painful scene. "There," Marcus said coldly. "I took it. Now stop disturbing my life." Charles exhaled like a drowning man who had finally reached the surface. "I will," he promised. Marcus pointed at him. "Do not come to my workplace again," he said. "Do not block roads for me. Do not embarrass me in front of people." Charles nodded quickly. "Okay," he said. Marcus turned and walked away. This time, Charles did not follow. He stood by the car and watched his son disappear into the evening crowd. Then he entered the vehicle quietly. The door closed with a soft click. The car pulled away slowly, but Charles did not leave like a man surrendering. He left like a man who had made a private decision. Later that night, Marcus reached the small room he rented behind a row of aging buildings. The walls were thin. The air smelled faintly of dust, cooking smoke, and old rainwater trapped in the gutters. He washed slowly, rubbing dirt from his arms like he was trying to remove the whole day from his skin. Then he ate a small meal, plain and humble, just enough to silence his stomach. Afterward, he sat on the edge of his bed and brought out his savings envelope. The mattress dipped beneath his tired body. Outside, neighbors talked softly. Somewhere nearby, a baby cried. Marcus poured the money onto the bed and began counting. His fingers moved carefully. Each note carried a memory of sacrifice. When he finished, he sighed. He was close, but still not close enough. Vanessa's face entered his mind. He remembered the years they had spent together. He remembered encouraging her when she cried about her future. He remembered spending his last money just to make sure she did not feel unloved. He remembered helping her family, carrying burdens without complaint, standing silently while people spoke to him like he had no value. He had endured it because he loved her. But there was one truth Vanessa did not know. She did not know who his father truly was. She did not know the life he had walked away from. She did not know that behind his simple clothes stood a family name powerful enough to change rooms before he entered them. Marcus looked at the black card resting on the small table. It seemed to stare back at him. "This cannot continue," he whispered. He picked up his phone. Tonight, he decided, he would tell Vanessa everything. Not to boast, not to threaten, not to use his father's name as a weapon. He simply wanted honesty. He wanted to ask the woman he loved what he should do next. For the first time in years, Marcus felt unsure. He folded his savings again and placed them carefully inside the envelope. Then he stood, slipped on his sandals, and stepped into the quiet night. The air outside was calm, but inside his chest, something restless had started moving. He believed he was walking toward love. He had no idea he was walking toward humiliation. The night air felt cooler as Marcus approached Vanessa's family home. A soft breeze moved through the neighborhood, carrying laughter, music, and the smell of food from nearby houses. For a brief moment, he felt hopeful. He touched the savings envelope in his pocket and smiled faintly. He imagined Vanessa listening patiently while he finally told her the truth. He imagined relief. He imagined a future. Instead, he walked into a nightmare. The front gate stood open. Voices filled the compound. People moved about casually, laughing as though they were celebrating something. Marcus slowed his steps. Something felt strange. Then he saw Vanessa. She looked different. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup was elegant, her clothes were far more expensive than what she normally wore. She stood beside a man Marcus had never seen before. The man was dressed sharply. His watch gleamed beneath the lights, his shoes looked brand new. Confidence poured from him so heavily that it almost felt rehearsed. Marcus's stomach tightened. Vanessa noticed him immediately. The smile on her face disappeared. "Marcus," she said loudly. The conversation around them slowed. Several people turned to watch. Marcus forced a small smile. "Vanessa," he said, "I came to see you." She folded her arms. "Why?" The question landed harder than he expected. Marcus hesitated. "I need to talk to you." Vanessa laughed once. The sound carried no warmth. "Talk about what?" Her mother appeared nearby, watching closely. Marcus lowered his voice. "Please, somewhere private. Something important happened today." "My father—" Vanessa raised her hand. "I'm tired of hearing stories," she interrupted. The words cut deeper than she knew. Marcus looked around. People were openly watching now. "Just give me a few minutes," he pleaded. Vanessa stepped closer. "Let me make this simple," she said clearly. The crowd became silent. "We're done." Marcus blinked. For a second, he thought he had heard wrong. "What?" Vanessa smiled coldly. Then she wrapped her arm around the man beside her. "This is Brandon Nwosu," she announced proudly. "My fiancé." The world seemed to stop. Marcus stared at her. He searched her face for guilt, for regret, for hesitation. There was none, only pride. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "we've been together for 5 years." Her expression hardened. "5 years of suffering," she replied. 5 years of waiting for promises. 5 years of hearing that tomorrow would be better. Marcus felt his chest tightening. "I was working for us," he said. "No," Vanessa snapped. "You were struggling. There's a difference." Brandon smiled smugly beside her. Vanessa pointed toward Marcus's dusty clothes. "Look at yourself," she said. "You came here covered in construction dust. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is?" Marcus swallowed hard. The crowd watched every second. "I came because I wanted to tell you something important," he said. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Let me guess. Is it about the 300,000 you've been saving?" A few people chuckled. "That money means something to me," Marcus replied. Vanessa laughed loudly. 300,000? Brandon spends more than that without thinking. Her mother stepped forward. "Exactly," she said. "This is reality, not dreams." Marcus looked from face to face. People he had helped, people he had respected, people who now looked at him as though he were a joke. "I stood by this family," he said quietly. "I helped whenever I could. I never complained. Why are you treating me like I never mattered?" Vanessa's eyes became colder. "Because you don't matter anymore." The words hit harder than any punch. Marcus felt something crack inside him. Brandon stepped forward. "You heard her," he said. "Leave." Marcus finally looked directly at him. Brandon reached into his pocket and produced a sleek black card. Immediately people reacted. Whispers spread through the crowd. Admiration filled the air. Brandon lifted the card proudly. "This," he said, "is the kind of life Vanessa deserves." Marcus barely listened. His attention locked onto the card. His throat went dry. The logo, the design, the bank. It belonged to the same institution controlled by his father. Suddenly, the humiliation felt connected to something larger. Marcus took a step forward. "Vanessa, please, just give me 2 minutes." He reached gently toward her arm. Vanessa reacted instantly. "Don't touch me." She shoved him hard. Marcus lost his balance. The ground rushed upward. Dust exploded around him. Laughter followed. Some people openly pointed. Others smiled. Marcus sat on the ground, his palms burning from the impact. Vanessa stood above him. "Look at you," she shouted. "You're pathetic." The crowd laughed again. Marcus looked up. Pain filled his eyes. Not because he had fallen, because the woman he loved was helping people enjoy it. Then, just as another wave of laughter began, a calm female voice cut through the noise. "Is this really how grown people behave?" The entire compound turned, and for the first time that night, someone had arrived who was not laughing. The compound fell silent as the young woman stepped forward. She was dressed simply, carrying a small handbag and wearing the kind of confidence that did not need attention. Her beauty was not loud, it was calm, the kind that made people look twice without understanding why. Her name was Ruby Bennett. Marcus recognized her immediately. Ruby sold meals near the construction site where he worked. Every day she arrived with containers of rice, beans, vegetables, and homemade dishes. The workers respected her because she treated everyone with dignity. She never mocked people. She never looked down on anyone. They were not close friends. But they knew each other, and somehow seeing a familiar face felt like relief. Ruby looked at Marcus, sitting on the ground. Her expression tightened, not with pity, with disappointment. Disappointment in everyone else. She stepped closer. "Stand up," she said calmly. Marcus hesitated. He did not want more attention. He did not want another reason for people to laugh. But Ruby kept her hand extended, steady, certain. Finally, Marcus accepted it. She pulled him to his feet. Dust covered his clothes. His palms still stung. Ruby glanced at him. "You'll survive," she said lightly. "You look strong enough." A few people laughed. This time, the laughter felt different, less cruel. Marcus managed a tired smile. "My body is strong," he replied. "My heart isn't." Ruby's smile faded. She nodded once. Then she turned toward Vanessa and her family. The warmth vanished from her face. "You should all be ashamed of yourselves," she said. Vanessa scoffed. "And who are you?" "Ruby Bennett," she answered calmly. "I sell food at the construction site where Marcus works every day." She pointed gently toward him. "Everybody knows how hard this man works." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Ruby continued, "If you want to end a relationship, that's your choice. But why turn it into public humiliation?" Vanessa's mother stepped forward. "Mind your business." Ruby didn't move. "It becomes my business when a group of adults treats another person like entertainment." The statement landed heavily. Several neighbors exchanged glances. They knew she was right. They had watched Marcus leave early every morning. They had watched him return late every night. They knew how hard he worked. Nobody had spoken up before. Ruby did. Marcus stared at her. Nobody had defended him in years. Not publicly, not when it mattered. Yet this woman barely knew him. Still, she stood there refusing to let him be destroyed for sport. "Vanessa," Ruby continued, "you are free to choose whoever you want, but don't pretend Marcus never tried. Everyone can see he did." Vanessa's jaw tightened. Before she could respond, Brandon stepped forward slowly. He began clapping. The sound echoed across the compound. "Well," he said sarcastically, "looks like Marcus has a defender." His eyes moved over Ruby dismissively. "The lunch lady." Some people laughed again. Ruby looked at him as though he were a child misbehaving. The reaction irritated him immediately. Brandon raised his black card once more. "This is what matters," he announced. "Not carrying bricks, not struggling, not empty promises. Money matters." He stepped closer to Marcus. "You are nothing," he said, "and you'll never deserve Vanessa." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Enough was enough. The insults, the laughter, the assumptions. He slowly reached into his pocket. Ruby noticed immediately. So did Brandon. Marcus removed the black card Charles had given him earlier. He did not hold it proudly. He did not wave it around. He simply held it up. The reaction was instant. The compound exploded with laughter. Vanessa doubled over. Her mother laughed loudly. Brandon laughed hardest of all. "Look at this," he shouted. "Now he wants to compete with me." People pointed. Some shook their heads. Others openly mocked him. To them, Marcus looked ridiculous. A dusty construction worker standing beside a wealthy businessman. The comparison seemed impossible, but Ruby did not laugh, not once. She studied the card carefully. Then she looked at Marcus. Something about his face stopped her from joining the mockery. She did not know what the card meant, but she knew one thing. Marcus was not lying for attention. The laughter continued growing. Brandon wiped tears from his eyes. "Do you even know what kind of card that is?" he asked. Marcus remained silent. "This card is invitation only," Brandon announced proudly. "People don't apply for it. The bank chooses them." He looked Marcus up and down. "And you're a construction worker." More laughter. Brandon pointed accusingly. "Which means there's only one explanation." The crowd leaned closer. Brandon smiled. "You stole it." The compound erupted again. Vanessa stared at Marcus with disgust. "I can't believe you would do something like that," she said. Marcus felt exhaustion settle into his bones. Not physical exhaustion, something deeper. He was tired of proving himself. Tired of explaining himself. Tired of being judged by people who had already decided who he was. Yet as the accusations grew louder, Ruby moved slightly closer to him. Her voice became a quiet whisper. "Don't let them break you," she said. Marcus looked at her. For the first time that night, he felt something stronger than pain. And just as Brandon prepared to humiliate him further, a thought crossed Marcus's mind. If they wanted the truth so badly, perhaps it was finally time to let the truth arrive. The laughter rolled across the compound like a wave. Brandon stood at the center of it, smiling proudly as though he had already won. Vanessa crossed her arms and watched Marcus with open contempt. Her mother shook her head dramatically. The neighbors whispered among themselves, convinced they were witnessing the downfall of a desperate man. Marcus stood quietly. The black card remained in his hand. He no longer cared about their opinions. He was simply tired. Brandon pointed at the card again. "You stole it," he declared. "Or maybe you made a fake one. Either way, you're finished." Several people nodded. The accusation sounded believable to them. Marcus looked around the compound. Not a single person seemed interested in hearing his side. Except one. Ruby. She remained beside him, calm, observant, unmoved by the crowd. Brandon enjoyed the attention. He stepped forward and raised his voice. "Let me explain something to everyone here. This card is extremely exclusive. Most wealthy people never qualify for it. Yet somehow a construction worker expects us to believe it belongs to him." More laughter followed. Vanessa shook her head. "Marcus, this is embarrassing." He said nothing. Brandon smiled wider. "Actually, I know exactly what to do." He pulled out his phone. The crowd immediately became interested. "My father works at the bank," Brandon announced proudly. "We'll verify everything right now." Excitement spread through the compound. People moved closer. Nobody wanted to miss the spectacle. Ruby folded her arms. "You seem very excited about humiliating people," she said. Brandon laughed. "No, I just enjoy exposing liars." Marcus stared at him. Then something inside him finally shifted. Not anger, acceptance. If they wanted answers, they would get them. He reached into his pocket and removed his phone. The crowd immediately became louder. Vanessa laughed. "Who are you calling?" "More construction workers," Brandon added. Marcus ignored them. He scrolled calmly through his contacts. Then he selected a number. The call connected almost immediately. Marcus lifted the phone to his ear. His voice remained steady. "Good evening, Mr. Williams." The crowd quieted slightly. Marcus continued. "This is Marcus Okoro. I need you to come to Vanessa Bennett's house right away." He listened briefly. "Thank you." The call ended. Marcus returned the phone to his pocket. Silence lingered for a moment, then the compound exploded with laughter again. Vanessa nearly doubled over. "That's it?" she asked. Brandon wiped tears from his eyes. "You called someone? That's your big plan?" Marcus said nothing. His silence somehow irritated them even more. Ruby studied him carefully. There was no panic in his eyes, no fear, no desperation, only exhaustion. She moved slightly closer. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. "They aren't worth it." Marcus looked at her. "I'm not doing this for them." Ruby tilted her head. "Then why?" Marcus released a slow breath. "Because I'm tired." The honesty in his voice surprised her. For the first time, she understood that the humiliation itself was not what hurt him most. What hurt was spending years proving his worth to people determined not to see it. Meanwhile, Brandon continued making calls. He wanted witnesses, he wanted an audience. He wanted everyone present when Marcus was exposed. The minutes passed slowly. The evening sky darkened further, streetlights flickered on. The atmosphere became strangely tense. Then a car horn sounded outside the gate. One short beep, clean, controlled. The compound grew quiet. A dark sedan rolled through the entrance. It was not flashy, it was not loud. Yet something about it immediately demanded attention. The vehicle stopped. A man stepped out. He appeared to be in his 40s. Well-dressed, professional, confident. The kind of man who spent his days in boardrooms rather than neighborhood gatherings. His eyes scanned the compound once, then he walked directly toward Marcus. Not toward Brandon, not toward Vanessa. Toward Marcus. The crowd watched carefully. The stranger stopped in front of him. Then he spoke. "Good evening, sir." The entire compound froze. Vanessa's smile vanished. Brandon blinked. Several neighbors exchanged confused looks. Marcus nodded slightly. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Williams." The man adjusted his suit. "Of course, sir." The word landed even harder the second time. Ruby noticed something immediately. Marcus did not look proud. He did not look victorious. He looked tired, as if the attention itself was a burden. Brandon recovered first. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man turned slowly. "My name is Daniel Williams." "And why are you calling him sir?" Daniel looked at Marcus, then back at Brandon. A faint smile crossed his face. "Because that's how I address him." The answer only made things worse. Brandon's face darkened. Vanessa's mother stepped forward nervously. The neighbors began whispering again. Something had changed. Nobody knew exactly what, but for the first time that night, the crowd was no longer laughing, and Brandon suddenly realized the situation might be slipping out of his control. The compound remained silent. Nobody laughed anymore. The confidence that had filled Brandon's face only minutes earlier began to fade. He looked from Marcus to Daniel Williams and back again, trying to understand what was happening. Vanessa's mother shifted uneasily. Several neighbors whispered among themselves. For the first time all evening, uncertainty had entered the crowd. Brandon refused to accept it. "This means nothing," he snapped. "Anyone can hire someone to act important." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you believe?" "Yes," Brandon answered immediately. "Then continue believing it." The calm response irritated him even more. Brandon turned toward Marcus. "You're still a construction worker, you're still broke, and you're still trying to impress people." Marcus remained silent. The silence frustrated Brandon more than any argument could have. Ruby noticed the change immediately. The louder Brandon became, the calmer Marcus seemed. That contrast was beginning to make people uncomfortable. A second vehicle suddenly entered the compound. This one attracted even more attention. The car stopped beside Daniel's sedan. The rear door opened. An elegant woman stepped out. She moved with quiet authority. Not arrogance, authority. Her tailored outfit was expensive without being flashy. Her expression remained composed. Her eyes missed nothing. The moment Daniel saw her, he straightened. Marcus immediately recognized her. Sophia Reynolds, one of Charles Okoro's most trusted executives. She handled major corporate decisions and rarely appeared in public without purpose. The atmosphere changed again. Sophia walked directly toward the group. People instinctively moved aside. Even Brandon stepped back. She stopped beside Marcus. "Good evening," she said warmly. Marcus nodded. "Good evening." Vanessa's eyes widened. She noticed something important. Sophia was not treating Marcus like an employee. She was treating him like someone important. Very important. Brandon cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said. "Who exactly are you?" Sophia looked at him briefly. "That information is not relevant to you." The answer hit him harder than expected. Several neighbors exchanged surprised glances. Nobody spoke to Brandon that way, at least not usually. Sophia turned back toward Marcus. "Mr. Okoro asked me to come." The mention of Charles's name instantly captured everyone's attention. Vanessa frowned. "Charles Okoro?" Her voice sounded uncertain. Sophia nodded. "Yes." Brandon forced a laugh. You expect us to believe that? Sophia looked directly at him. Believe whatever helps you sleep tonight. The crowd murmured. The tension continued growing. Brandon suddenly remembered something. His father, if anyone could restore control, it was him. He immediately pulled out his phone. Fine, he said. Let's settle this properly. He dialed quickly. The call connected. Dad, I need you here right now. His voice was urgent. Some people are trying to pull a scam. He listened briefly. Please come immediately. The call ended. Brandon looked relieved. My father will handle this. Sophia remained unimpressed. Marcus remained silent. Ruby remained beside him. The neighbors waited. 10 minutes later, another luxury vehicle entered the compound. This time, the reaction was immediate. People recognized the man stepping out. Victor Nwosu, a senior banking executive, Brandon's father, the same man whose position gave his family influence and status. Victor entered the compound with confidence. He barely greeted anyone. What's going on here? His voice carried authority. Brandon rushed forward. Dad, it's him. He pointed directly at Marcus. He's pretending to own a black card. Victor looked at Marcus, then at Daniel, then at Sophia. For the first time, his confidence weakened slightly. He recognized both executives immediately. His eyes narrowed. Interesting, he muttered. Sophia folded her arms. Very interesting. Victor recovered quickly. Let's verify everything. He looked at Marcus. If the card belongs to you, the system will confirm it. Brandon smiled again. He believed victory was close. Vanessa nodded eagerly. Her mother whispered prayers under her breath. Ruby watched Marcus. He did not seem worried, not even slightly. That observation unsettled her. Victor requested the card. Marcus handed it over calmly. The executive studied it carefully. Then he looked up. We'll verify it right now. Daniel opened a secure banking application. Sophia stood quietly beside him. Everyone leaned forward. The compound felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Brandon smiled confidently. Vanessa waited eagerly. Ruby held her breath. Marcus simply watched. Then Daniel's expression changed. The smile disappeared from his face. Sophia stepped closer to the screen. Victor frowned. What is it? He asked. Daniel looked up slowly. The shock in his eyes was impossible to hide, and suddenly Brandon's confidence began to collapse. The compound felt frozen. Nobody breathed comfortably. Nobody spoke. Everyone stared at Daniel's screen. Brandon's confidence remained on his face, but cracks were beginning to show. Vanessa stood beside him, trying to convince herself that everything would soon return to normal. Victor Nwosu looked directly at Daniel. Well, he demanded. Daniel swallowed, then he looked at Sophia. Sophia nodded once. Tell them. Daniel slowly turned the screen toward Victor. The older man's eyes scanned the information. His face immediately changed. The confidence disappeared. Then came confusion, then disbelief, then fear. Impossible, Victor whispered. See, Brandon stepped forward. What does it say? Victor did not answer immediately. His eyes remained locked on the screen. The silence felt endless. Finally, Daniel spoke. The card is authentic. The crowd erupted. Gasps spread through the compound. Vanessa's mouth opened. Her mother grabbed her chest. Several neighbors stared openly at Marcus. Brandon laughed nervously. Authentic. Fine. Then whose card is it? Nobody answered. The nervousness in the air grew. Victor slowly handed the device back to Daniel. His hands were trembling. Ruby noticed it. Sophia noticed it. Marcus noticed it. Brandon did not. Well? Brandon demanded again. Daniel finally looked directly at him. The account connected to this card belongs to a member of the Okoro family trust. Silence. Absolute silence. Vanessa blinked. Her mother blinked. Several neighbors exchanged confused looks. Brandon frowned. What does that even mean? Victor closed his eyes briefly. The answer was already becoming obvious. Daniel continued. The account holder is authorized through Charles Okoro's private family structure. The compound exploded into whispers. People immediately recognized the name. Charles Okoro, one of the most powerful men in the country. Vanessa felt her stomach tighten. Her eyes slowly drifted toward Marcus. For the first time all evening, uncertainty appeared in her face. Brandon shook his head. "No, that's impossible." Sophia finally stepped forward. "Is it?" Brandon looked at her, then at Marcus, then back at her. His confidence continued crumbling. "He's a construction worker," Brandon argued. "Yes," Sophia replied, "he is." The answer confused everyone. Then how can he have access to that account? Sophia's expression remained calm because not every wealthy person chooses to advertise wealth. The words landed heavily. Vanessa felt her pulse racing. Memories flashed through her mind. Marcus helping her family. Marcus carrying groceries. Marcus fixing broken things around the house. Marcus arriving exhausted after work. Marcus never once complaining. Had she misunderstood everything? Brandon refused to accept reality. "I don't believe it." Sophia looked bored. Belief is not required for facts. Several neighbors nodded slowly. The crowd that had mocked Marcus only minutes earlier now avoided eye contact. Nobody wanted to be associated with the humiliation anymore. Vanessa's mother stepped forward nervously. "Marcus," she said. Her tone had completely changed. Marcus looked at her. "Yes?" She forced a smile. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding." Marcus almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. The same people who insulted him were suddenly searching for softer words. Ruby noticed the shift too. She shook her head quietly. People could be cruel when they thought someone was powerless, and kind when they discovered influence. Marcus remained calm. "There was no misunderstanding," he said. The statement made Vanessa lower her eyes, because she knew he was right. The humiliation had been intentional. The insults had been deliberate. The betrayal had been real. Then another voice interrupted. A deep, familiar voice. "He's right." Everyone turned. A black luxury vehicle had just entered the compound. This time, nobody needed an introduction. The moment Charles Okoro stepped out, the atmosphere changed completely. Neighbors moved aside immediately. Vanessa's mother nearly stopped breathing. Victor straightened instantly. Brandon's face lost all color. Marcus stood motionless. His father walked slowly toward him. The powerful banker looked older than before, tired, regretful, human. Charles stopped beside Marcus. Then he turned toward the crowd. His voice remained calm. "This young man you've been mocking all evening," he said. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Is my son." The compound fell into complete silence. Vanessa's knees nearly gave way. Brandon looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Ruby stared at Marcus, not with admiration, not with excitement, with shock, because suddenly everything made sense and everything had changed. The silence inside the compound felt unreal. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Charles Okoro's hand rested on Marcus's shoulder, while the weight of his words settled over everyone present. "This young man is my son." The statement echoed through the minds of every witness. Vanessa stared at Marcus as if she had never truly seen him before. Her breathing became uneven. Her mother looked ready to collapse. Several neighbors lowered their eyes in shame. Brandon stood frozen. The confidence that had carried him all evening had disappeared completely. Victor Nwosu looked even worse. Unlike his son, he understood exactly what this revelation meant. Charles slowly removed his hand from Marcus's shoulder. Then he looked around the compound. His gaze was calm, but it carried enough authority to silence anyone. "My son never asked for special treatment," Charles said. "He never used my name." His eyes moved toward Vanessa. "He never used wealth to gain respect." Vanessa lowered her head. Tears began forming in her eyes. Charles continued, "Everything he earned came from his own effort." The neighbors shifted uncomfortably. They remembered every insult, every laugh, every cruel comment. Charles turned toward Brandon. "And yet people judged him because of dusty clothes and honest work." Brandon swallowed hard. For the first time in his life, he looked small. Marcus remained silent. He did not enjoy the moment. He did not feel victorious. Instead, he felt exhausted. The entire scene only reminded him why he had hidden his identity in the first place. Ruby watched quietly. Her emotions were complicated. She was shocked, confused. But beneath all of it, one truth remained unchanged. The man standing beside Charles was still the same Marcus she had known at the construction site. The same man who carried blocks. The same man who counted savings carefully. The same man who treated workers with respect. Charles suddenly faced Vanessa and her family. Nobody could meet his eyes. "My son loved you," Charles said quietly. The statement hit harder than any accusation. Vanessa immediately began crying. Charles shook his head. "You judged his value before knowing his worth." Her mother covered her face. No defense existed. No excuse sounded convincing. The truth was painfully simple. They had mistaken kindness for weakness. They had mistaken humility for failure. Victor finally stepped forward. "Mr. Okoro," he began nervously. Charles looked at him. The older banker immediately lost confidence. "I apologize for what happened tonight." Charles remained expressionless. "Do you?" Victor hesitated. The question carried more weight than anger. It demanded honesty. Victor lowered his eyes. "Yes." Charles nodded once, then he turned away. The conversation was over. Victor understood immediately. The dismissal felt worse than a public argument. Meanwhile, Brandon suddenly rushed toward Marcus. His face was pale. His voice trembled. "Marcus, listen." Marcus looked at him. Brandon struggled to find words. The man who had mocked him all evening now looked desperate. "I didn't know." Marcus stared quietly. "Exactly," he replied. The answer struck harder than any insult, because it exposed the real problem. Brandon had decided Marcus's value before knowing anything about him. The crowd understood it too. One by one, neighbors began leaving. Nobody wanted to remain in the compound. The atmosphere had become uncomfortable. People were forced to confront their own behavior. Eventually, only a small group remained: Charles, Marcus, Ruby, Vanessa and her family, Victor and Brandon. The night felt strangely quiet. Then Vanessa stepped forward. Tears streamed down her face. Marcus." He looked at her. She struggled to speak. "I'm sorry." The words barely escaped. Marcus listened, but something important had changed. The apology no longer mattered, not because he hated her, because he was no longer waiting for it. Vanessa noticed immediately. The realization shattered her. The man she had once controlled with affection now stood completely free. Marcus took a slow breath. Then he looked toward Ruby. For a brief second, their eyes met. And something unexpected happened. For the first time all night, Marcus felt calm. Not because his identity had been revealed, not because the truth had won, because one person in that entire crowd had treated him with dignity before knowing who he was. Ruby quickly looked away, but the moment had already happened. Charles noticed it. Sophia noticed it. Even Vanessa noticed it. And suddenly, a different kind of realization began forming in everyone's mind. Perhaps the most important chapter of Marcus's life was not the one ending tonight. Perhaps it was the one quietly beginning. The crowd slowly disappeared into the night. One by one, the neighbors returned to their homes, carrying stories they would talk about for years. The compound that had been full of laughter and mockery now felt heavy with regret. Marcus stood quietly beneath the dim lights. He felt no victory, no excitement, no desire to celebrate, only relief. The truth was finally out. Charles approached him carefully. "Marcus," he said. His voice carried none of the authority that made executives nervous. It sounded like a father trying not to lose another chance. "Can we talk?" Marcus looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. The night breeze moved softly through the compound. Somewhere in the distance, music drifted from another neighborhood gathering. Life continued as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Finally, Marcus nodded. "Not here," Charles exhaled slowly. "That's enough for me." Meanwhile, Vanessa remained frozen. Her eyes followed Marcus everywhere. Reality continued sinking deeper into her heart. The man she had insulted, the man she had humiliated, the man she had thrown away, was not only wealthy, he was everything she had claimed to want. Yet somehow she had never recognized his value, because she had been looking at his circumstances instead of his character. Vanessa suddenly stepped forward. "Marcus, please wait." He stopped. The pain in her voice was obvious. "I made a mistake." Marcus looked at her quietly. The silence encouraged her. "I was angry. I was frustrated. I didn't understand." Tears ran down her face. Please give me another chance. The words hung in the air. Everyone remaining heard them. Even Brandon looked stunned. Vanessa was begging, the same woman who had mocked Marcus only hours earlier. Marcus studied her carefully. He remembered the years they had shared, the dreams, the promises, the sacrifices, the love. Then he remembered something else. The laughter, the shove, the humiliation. The moment she looked at him like he was worthless. His expression softened slightly, not with love, with understanding. "Vanessa," he said quietly. Her eyes brightened. For a second, hope returned. Then Marcus continued, "You didn't lose a wealthy man tonight." She stopped breathing. "You lost a good man." The words hit harder than any punishment. Vanessa broke completely. Her shoulders shook. Her tears came faster. But Marcus did not move toward her. The chapter was already closed. Across the compound, Brandon looked defeated. The arrogance that once defined him had vanished. Victor grabbed his son's shoulder. "Enough," he said. His voice sounded tired. The older man finally understood that no amount of status could repair what had happened. Father and son left quietly. Neither looked back. The compound grew even quieter. Then Charles turned toward Ruby. She immediately became uncomfortable. Attention had never been her goal. She simply wanted to help someone who was being treated unfairly. Charles smiled warmly. "Thank you." Ruby blinked. "For what?" "For seeing my son before everyone else did." The statement surprised her. She glanced at Marcus. He looked away slightly, almost embarrassed. Ruby smiled despite herself. "I only treated him like a human being." Charles nodded. "Exactly." The answer carried more meaning than she expected. Later that evening, after everyone finally left, Marcus walked Ruby toward her neighborhood. The streets were quiet. Streetlights cast soft pools of light onto the pavement. Neither spoke much at first. Too much had happened. Too many emotions remained unsettled. Eventually, Ruby broke the silence. "So you're rich?" Marcus laughed softly. The sound surprised both of them. "Apparently." Ruby shook her head. "That's not what I meant." Marcus looked at her. "I know." She stopped walking. "Why hide it?" Marcus stared toward the dark road ahead. His answer came slowly. "Because I wanted to know who cared about me and who cared about money." Ruby nodded. The answer made sense. Then Marcus added something unexpected. "And because I didn't want to become my father." Ruby studied him carefully. For the first time, she understood how much pain Marcus had been carrying. Not just poverty, not just heartbreak, family wounds, abandonment, expectations, a life he never asked for. They resumed walking. The night felt peaceful now, almost healing. As they approached Ruby's street, Marcus suddenly stopped. His heart was beating harder than expected. Not from fear, from something else. Something new, something honest. He looked at Ruby, then smiled. A real smile, the first one she had ever seen from him. And in that moment, Ruby realized something surprising. Without either of them noticing, friendship had quietly become something much more dangerous. Something neither of them was prepared for. Something called hope. Hope arrived quietly. Not with headlines, not with applause, not with wealth. It arrived during ordinary conversations, evening walks, and shared laughter beneath fading sunsets. In the weeks that followed, Marcus's life changed in ways he never expected. The public revelation of his identity spread quickly through business circles and neighborhoods alike. People suddenly wanted to know him. Invitations appeared, opportunities multiplied, doors that had always been closed swung open without effort. Yet Marcus remained the same. He still wore simple clothes. He still visited construction sites. He still greeted workers by name. Most importantly, he still spent time with Ruby. The difference was that now he no longer hid the truth. One evening, they sat together outside Ruby's home. The air was cool. Children played farther down the street. The smell of dinner drifted from nearby houses. Ruby looked at Marcus. "Your father keeps calling you." Marcus smiled. "You noticed?" "Everyone notices." They laughed. The laughter felt easy, natural, peaceful. Marcus leaned back and stared at the darkening sky. "He wants me to take over the company." Ruby nodded. "And?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "Part of me wants to help him. Part of me still remembers everything that happened." Ruby remained silent. She knew this was not a problem anyone else could solve. Marcus would have to find his own answer. After a long pause, she spoke softly. "Forgiveness doesn't erase pain." Marcus looked at her. "What does it do?" Ruby smiled. "It stops pain from controlling your future." The words stayed with him. Days later, Marcus finally agreed to meet Charles privately. They sat together in Charles's office. The room overlooked the city skyline. Years earlier, Marcus would have felt intimidated. Now he simply felt calm. Charles looked older. The regret in his eyes remained. "I don't deserve another chance," Charles admitted. Marcus listened quietly. "You're right," he said. Charles lowered his head. The honesty hurt. Then Marcus continued, "But I'm tired of carrying anger everywhere." Charles looked up. Hope appeared in his eyes. For the first time in years, father and son spoke honestly, not as banker and heir, not as powerful man and disappointed child. Just father and son. The conversation lasted hours. Some wounds remained. Some questions had no answers, but healing finally began. Meanwhile, life continued teaching lessons. Vanessa struggled with regret. She often replayed the night she pushed Marcus to the ground. The memory haunted her, not because he was wealthy, because she realized she had abandoned someone who genuinely loved her. Her parents carried the same burden. Eventually, they accepted a difficult truth. They had measured success by money and appearance. In doing so, they overlooked character. The lesson cost them dearly. As for Brandon, his problems grew worse. Investigations uncovered financial misconduct connected to several business dealings. His reputation collapsed. Many of the people who once surrounded him disappeared. The attention he loved vanished, and without it, he discovered how lonely pride can be. Months passed. Marcus gradually stepped into leadership roles within his father's organization, not because he wanted power, because he wanted fairness. He remembered workers like himself. He remembered people like Ruby, people with talent but no connections, people whose opportunities depended on someone finally opening a door. New hiring programs were created, scholarships appeared, small businesses gained access to opportunities previously reserved for insiders. The changes were not perfect, but they were real. One afternoon, Ruby received an unexpected job offer, not because of Marcus, because of her qualifications. Marcus had insisted on one condition: no special treatment. Ruby earned the position herself. When she received the acceptance letter, she cried, not from sadness, from relief. Years of struggle had finally led somewhere. That evening, she found Marcus waiting outside her house. She waved the letter proudly. "I got it." Marcus smiled. "I know." "How?" "Because they called me after you impressed everyone." Ruby laughed, then she stopped. Her eyes softened. "Thank you." Marcus shook his head. "You earned it." The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. For a moment, neither spoke. Neither needed to. Eventually, Marcus reached into his pocket. Ruby immediately noticed. "What are you doing?" His smile grew nervous, a rare sight. Marcus pulled out a small box. Ruby froze, her heart raced. Marcus took a deep breath. "You stood beside me when I had dust on my clothes and nothing to offer except honesty." Tears filled Ruby's eyes. Marcus continued, "You saw my worth before anyone else did." His voice trembled slightly. "Ruby Bennett, will you marry me?" The world seemed to pause. Children stopped playing nearby. The evening breeze felt softer. Ruby covered her mouth. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. Then she laughed through them. "You took long enough." Marcus laughed too. The answer was clear. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Months later, family and friends gathered beneath warm lights and smiling skies. Charles stood proudly beside his son, not because of business, not because of inheritance, because he had finally found his way back into Marcus's life. Ruby walked toward Marcus with grace and joy. The future stretched before them, not perfect, not guaranteed, but real, and sometimes real is more beautiful than perfect. Marcus had started his journey believing success meant earning enough money to be accepted. Life taught him something greater. True wealth is not found in bank accounts. It is found in character, in loyalty, in forgiveness, in the people who stand beside you when nobody else will. And as Marcus looked into Ruby's eyes, he finally understood something that had taken years to learn. The greatest blessing in life is not finding someone who loves your success. It is finding someone who loves your soul. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, your viewing location, and share this video.